The Sazanami clan was a renowned group of sorcerers in Kagurabashi. They were wealthy and had squads of elite sorcerers. And most of all, they were heads of the Rakuzaichi auction. The last head of the clan was Kyorra Sazanami. He was a genius who had 3 sons, 2 of which were considered outstanding prodigies, with skills that would lead them to become the next heads of the clan. Those 2 being Tenri and Soya Sazanami, the last victims of the clan's cycle of abuse. Hi everyone, this is just a note that this video will be divided into 2 parts. The first is scaling and comparing of these 2 characters, and the second being a breakdown of these characters and their permanent impact on the series. So I will be including a timestamp to label when there is going to be a change in what the video is about. Thanks. Soya is said to be the strongest member of the Sazanami clan. However, he suffers from something called the Kaizane effect, where you have a lot of quotes saying you're insanely strong. However, due to your opponents being in a whole tier above you, it makes it seem like you're a lot weaker than you actually are. So I will be giving him the benefit of the doubt for most of his feats, and really just trying to give him every little inch I can. In Soya's first fight in the series, we got to see the full extent of his speed. His opponent was Shiba, who, knowing what we know now, is actually pretty insane that Shiba considered that he had fast reactions. And Soya was actually able to react to Shiba's movements. His showing of strength throughout the series is pretty constant. He's shown to demolish the front of buildings and overpower his fellow Tau. He is 7 years older than Tenri, so it's pretty safe to assume he's got a lot more combat experience. However, it is shown time and time again that he will almost always succumb to his emotions in a fight. Against Hakuri and against Shiba, his performance was limited due to him losing control over his emotions at almost every possible time he could. And it's safe to say that he'd do the same over his own brother that he's insanely jealous of. Tenri himself is a very hard character to scale because his main performance against the top tier was off-screen, and although we do see Shiba a little roughed up, we can't really say it was just from him due to his 2 other town members being there. But we can scale him off of Chihiro, because during his fight with Chihiro with the other town members, he was able to keep up and react to Chihiro while he was cloaked in Nishiki, which in the previous arc was keeping up with Soja, which is comparable to Soya's Shiba feat. So that's pretty much all we can get from what we've seen on screen, since he doesn't actually hit or get hit by Chihiro. However, we are told that he's the youngest member of the Tau ever, and was able to take down an entire group of defectees by himself. So we know he has a decent amount of combat experience, and of course some level of overall strength. So to recap, I do believe Tenri surpasses his older brother in speed, but he does lose out in every other stat, unfortunately. So as much as I hate to say it, I will have to give this fight to Soya. But if Tenri was given the Dentenseki he had in his fight against Shiba, he would easily surpass his brother. See, Soya kept up with Shiba, but Tenri surpassed his speed and countered his attack with a blast that surpassed anything Soya had shown. So I believe that with no Dentenseki and both of them just how they are standardly, Soya probably beats his brother pretty bad. But if Tenri is given the Dentenseki, his skill and speed would completely take out his brother. The interesting thing about that is it doesn't feel out of character for Tenri to be willing to sacrifice himself just to maintain people's respect for him and not lose a fight. And it's not weird for Soya to have an extreme hatred of his own brother. But how did they end up like this? What caused them to end up in the state that they're left in now? Well, it all has to do with the cycle of abuse they were caught in. In Soya's younger years, he seemed no different than any other Sazanami clan member. He showed no signs of becoming an abusive brother one day. He seemed to just love his brothers and want to be by their sides. However, that changed the day Tenri became the youngest member of the Tau. Soya was known as the strongest member of Tau, and for good reason at that. He had the potential to be the next patriarch. Then his brother managed to become the youngest member ever to become part of their elite force. And everything that was being said about Soya started being said about Tenri. All he could ever hear was how great his brother was, and how he was a next generational prodigy. How he would be the next patriarch, and no matter how many times his own father told him that the right of patriarch was going to fall on him, he always seemed to second guess himself almost. And I mean, why would he be the next patriarch? After all, his brother is a prodigy, and he isn't, and not his younger brother. Now that Soya thought about it, no one ever really gave his younger brother Hakuri any love. They always thought him undeserving, so Soya thought, we're both not prodigies, so I'll give my brother the love he needs. And actually, Since he's so weak and pathetic, I'll give him all the love I possibly can. After all, someone who isn't a prodigy needs to be taken care of. So it will be my job to do that, he thought. I'll make sure he's loved and never leaves my sight, because seeing how weak he is, he'll probably get hurt. But Soya needed a way to keep Akuri around, to scare him from running off. So he started hurting him with anything he could find, even just using his own fists at times. Until Akuri ran off after what happened with the Ice Woman, and Soya chased after him. He didn't want the cycle to change. Soya wanted things to stay the same. He knew Akuri needed to rely on him and he wouldn't be safe by himself. But it seems like things would change after Kiora let him go. So he waited at the auction and sure enough it happened. Akuri ran in, but this time not for the reason Soya assumed. This time, Akuri had people. People he could prove his worth to. People he could show that he could be relied on. But he couldn't, and Soya won. And to Soya this was no surprise. After all, Hakuri was no Tenri, he was no prodigy. And then things started to appear around Soya. Things he had nearly forgotten about. I mean, at this point, everything blended together. He needed to show Akuri that he needed him so many times. Why would he even remember these specific things anymore? And then it clicked for Soya, and he realized what was really happening. But I mean, it couldn't be Hakuri. Hakuri was a failure who got no praise from Kiora and deserved no praise from Kiora. No. No! He's not more special than me. I will be the new head of the clan. I will inherit the storehouse. You aren't better than me. Tenri isn't better than me. I will be. And then that's it. With the perfectly timed ISO, Akuri took him out. And Soya died with a blind rage, because in his last moments, he saw the one last thing that could have made him special being taken away from him. The last thing that would have really made his father love him. So then how did Tenri turn out so different from his older brother? Why didn't he walk down the same abusive, obsessive path as him? Well, the difference between Tenri and Soya is that Soya stopped being the family prodigy, but Tenri never did. When Tenri became the youngest Tao member, he got to experience first-hand praise from his father, something rare among his family that not even his older brother got to experience. And from that point forward, he stayed Kyora's golden child. He dove deeper and deeper into tradition, to the point where when he saw Soya chase after his own twin brother, knowing full well what Soya would do to Hakuri, he didn't do anything. After all, if he went over there to stop that, he'd break his word to his father, and that would break tradition. And Tenri's constant obsession with needing his father's love was at its worst when he lost to Shiba. Shiba had beaten them all and was going to head straight into the storehouse, but Tenri couldn't let that happen, because if tradition broke and the auction ended, he would have failed his father. So he took the Dendenseki, knowing full well the effect it has on him, and he fought Shiba. He wouldn't let tradition be broken this day, and right when he had the upper hand, Chihiro came. But he wouldn't let this stop him. He would beat them all, and stop the auction from being interrupted. Then his father would finally... The last thoughts on Tenri's mind weren't fear. They weren't wishing he could have lived longer. His last thoughts were thinking he had let down his father, and that he'd no longer be loved. Tenri spent his entire life chasing after his own father's acceptance, willing to stake anything for it, and he did. If Soya represents the obsession with needing someone to rely on you, then Tenri represents the obsession with needing someone to accept you. The biggest tragedy of the Sazanami brothers is that there was a better fate for them. A life where go down the paths of obsession, love, and abusing others to cope with the lack of it. Kyora's last moment saw that path, and even acknowledged that it was his own fault things didn't go down it. The biggest tragedy of the Sazanami brothers is that their fates were decided for them. Hi everyone, hope you enjoyed the video. I really wanted to try something different with this, and I hope you guys like the change. I'll be doing another poll, of course, on my Twitter. You guys decide what I'm doing next. See you guys next time.